Birds and Bees Don't Fuck is produced by Champagne Womb LLC for your entertainment and education. It contains material that may not be suitable for those under the age of 18. Audience discretion is advised. The opinions, thoughts, and ideas expressed by guests on the show are solely their own. Now, without further ado, please enjoy the show. I hate to be the one to break it to you, but sex education of the past failed us. Because birds and bees, they don't fuck. Welcome to Birds and Bees Don't Fuck, a podcast where we learn exactly how bad our formative sex education, or lack thereof, really was. I'm your host, Ariel Zadok. I'm a producer, intimacy coordinator, and sex educator. My guest today is an intimacy coordinator, writer, performer, and founder of the Cuddle Sanctuary. Welcome to the show, Jean Franzblau. Woohoo!
Thank you so much. It's nice to be here.
It's so nice to have you. Officially my first intimacy coordinator other than myself.
Yes, we can talk shop and everyone can listen.
I love it. I love it. I have had someone on who has worked, well, I've had several people on who have worked with intimacy coordinators, which is always fun, especially because they're like, no, it's so great, which it is. And then I've had somebody who worked in adult films, which was really fun because we got to kind of like compare notes and there's like so much that's similar and so much that's different. So it was, that was fun. So.
I took a class on how to do intimacy work for adult films.
You did?
It was multiple hours, incredibly dense. It was so much information. It was overwhelming. Oh my God. There's a lot to know. I took lots of notes in case you want to see them.
Yeah, I do. I would actually really be interested in that. I am actually also talking to an adult film performer that I'm hopefully going to have on the show soon. So
amazing.
Yeah. So it's really fun.
I opted not to. I did the class and I'm like, okay, I've decided it's not for me. I'm really glad I slaked my curiosity, but I decided it wasn't where I wanted to target my work.
Yeah. And that's the thing, I think, with all things sexuality, because people have this idea that if you work in sexuality or if you're an intimacy coordinator, like you can do everything. And it's just not what is real. Not everyone has the capacity, the knowledge, the skills, the desire to do everything. So that's why it's so important that we have like all of our little special niches.
Right. And that we get to know each other so I can learn what your skill sets are.
Yeah.
I just learned one before the show. I have so many questions about what we were talking about.
Was it pole? Or
no, it was specifically about the physiology of orgasm and how you might talk to an actor about performing the physiology of an orgasm.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued.
Oh my God. Yeah. We'll talk shop afterwards because we can't be sharing top secrets.
Oh,
but also, I think that is, first of all, if you have a vulva, you have for sure faked an orgasm and you've for sure convinced the person you were with because they're so used to hearing fake orgasms, as in pornography orgasms, not real, rooted in this guttural, uncontrollable reaction of what your body is doing. It's a response to what's happening in your body, and it's a response to the muscle contractions that you can't control. Yeah. And our voice, our so throat is connected to our
pussies.
Our pussies. Yeah. I was going to say our pelvic girdle, our pelvic floor. So these muscles are connected. So your throat and your pussy are connected. So oftentimes, and I'm kind of veering into a different subject here, but it's worth stating anyway. But oftentimes when we're withholding our vocalization of an orgasm, we are withholding our orgasm itself because we're tensing.
Let me tell you, in my early orgasm years, so I was, my late teens, one time a partner said, shh. And the shh was for a reason. There was a reason that they did that. It was somebody who might overhear and they didn't want, but guess what? That closed down mine for years.
Oh no.
So reclaiming my sound and my voice was such a beautiful reclamation.
Yeah. And that is a story that so many people with vulvas share because our pleasure is shamed. It's secret. It's shoved aside. It's not cared about. But most of all, it's shamed and shushed.
It took one shush to F it up for years.
Yeah.
Years and years. So it just takes one negative situation to have an impact on many of us.
Yeah, specifically when it comes to sex. I mean, that's true, I think, for so many areas in our life, but like, whew, when it comes to sex and sexuality, because again, there's just so much shame that we carry with it. Ooh, boy.
We can be shut down if we're not safe.
Yes.
And safety is key. And without it, that's it.
100%.
Pleasure is not going to happen without the core of safety.
Yeah.
In my sense of things.
Yeah.
So, yay! I'm imagining the coaching you might have done for this actor was an orgasm, truly a real one.
Yeah.
And therefore one based in pleasure. And that's a beautiful thing to show on film.
Yeah. And it was. I mean, the scene itself was completely about her pleasure. This was her moment. It was her pleasure. It was a male director who really, really cared about making sure that the moment was not exploitive, that it was rooted in groundedness, that it really gave this character her moment of letting go, of pleasure, of just like complete and utter release and ecstasy.
That's what we want. We want the sex scenes to be rooted in the story. That tells us something about the character, tells us something about a relationship. And it sounds like that's exactly what was happening.
Oh,
there.
Absolutely.
You probably didn't have a moment of concern about it being part of the true storytelling.
No, not at all. I mean, it was handled with so much care. I mean, it's always a pleasure when any of us walk onto a set and a director or actor or any crew member is like, I'm so happy you're here.
Oh, amen. Doesn't always happen that way. Yeah. I was just having flashbacks about one production where it was a hostile work environment for everyone.
Yeah.
And especially for us.
Yeah.
And I don't think that helps anyone be safer.
No.
Certainly not us as crew members, but I love what you just described, a delicious scenario where we're wanted and our expertise is desired and wanted, that there's a place for us in the creative process.
Yeah, because there absolutely is. And I think it goes back to what you were just saying about you can't have pleasure without safety.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, that is true. This is like stuff that's going on in your bodies. There are hormones that are released when you're perceived to be in an unsafe environment that will block things like pleasure.
Like cortisol? Exactly. Anything else besides cortisol?
Cortisol is the only one that comes to mind, but like dopamine would be blocked, and other things would be blocked from being released because we don't need those, because regardless of what the scenario is, our bodies are designed to work in a non-digital, non-conscious space. And so they are always going to do what they need to do to survive in a life or death situation.
Right. So unfortunately for people who are handling a sexual assault type of situation or a situation where they don't feel safe, maybe they wouldn't call it that later, but all the cortisol is running and then all those fake sounds you were talking about are happening.
Yeah.
Just to get the moment past, make it seem like pleasure is happening. So when you said everyone has done a fake orgasm, I thought to myself, no, I haven't, but I have faked being orgasmic.
Yeah.
I have faked the sounds.
Yeah.
The sounds of pleasure when really I'm anxious, or the sounds of pleasure when really I'm bored, or the sounds of pleasure when really I don't know what I need.
Yeah.
Because I was trained to just make things sound nice. What a shame. It's just
what a fucking
so
shame.
much unlearning to do.
Oh my God, there's so much unlearning to do. It's like, where do we even start? It's like like whack-a-mole of unlearning, right? It's like, poof, that one. But now this one, poof, that one, poof, that one. It's like, it's never ending, really.
I feel like if somebody were to scroll Instagram or look at movies, that everyone's having pleasure. And I'll just say, from my experience, like I am still rooting into the trauma and I'm still finding the places of pleasure, the shame, all of it. I'm 53 and I feel like it will be a lifetime. I'll be still working on this project.
Yeah, you are. I mean, we all are, right? And the moment that we think that we're done, that's when we are shutting down and ignoring what could be, because the work is never done. We're never done learning. We're never done uncovering and growing. And as we age, things are changing in our bodies. Things are changing in our minds. Our sex is different. The way we move in the world is different. Our bodies are different. So, there are people who are like, oh no, I know everything. You can literally never know anything, especially when it comes to sex. Even sexologists will say that because we're constantly learning more about sexuality and our bodies and how we behave and everything dealing with sex.
It feels important to talk about because some people can feel like I'm broken and I'm alone in that,
yeah.
right? But the other thing about the research continuing to evolve, the clitoris, as you know, was known and then evaporated from textbooks
multiple times. Yeah.
Unbelievable. And only in the past 15 years did somebody in Australia map the actual shape so that now you have a sculpture of it over there.
Yeah.
Where we know what it looks like in all of its beauty. I call it like a duck.
A little duck.
Like a little duck.
That's so cute. I've never heard of it called a duck. I like that.
I have a joke around it. I was doing some open mics and now that we know it's shaped like a sort of a duck, it's quite simple. When making love, you can just tell your beloved to just go duck hunting.
Ah, I love that.
Especially if you're down south. Especially if you're down south.
Yeah, definitely. That will land in Florida real well.
Do you know that's where I'm from?
No.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Well, let's just dive into that part then.
Yeah.
Where are you from? Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in South Florida.
Oh boy.
And actually grew up in Hollywood, Florida.
Okay,
so
I'm familiar. Yeah.
My acting bio back in the day was from Hollywood to Hollywood.
Oh, cute.
Right.
Cute.
But that's where I learned the performing arts. I started performing when I was about 5. And then I joined a variety show when I was 7. So I was doing nursing homes and malls and doing performances with a variety show.
Oh my God.
So the onstage piece is in my bones. Is theater in your bones? Because I know you're an actor.
Yeah. So I started when I was 4. So similar. I started with dance. And it's really interesting because it wasn't until I became a pole dancer that I saw myself as a dancer. But that is as far as performance art disciplines, that's the one that I am most trained in and that I have the most variety in my training in. Yet I never saw myself as a dancer. It's so like our perception of ourselves is so fucked. It's just like, what? On paper, I have studied this and done this the most for the longest.
It must be because the judgment is that dancers only get to call themselves that with a certain number of years of ballet training.
Yeah.
And without it, you cannot call yourself that.
And a lack of consistency because I was quit a lot when I was a kid. So it was when I started pole and I was very consistent with pole. Then I was like, I guess I can call myself a dancer. I've literally gotten paid to dance.
Oh, then you're a professional dancer.
I'm a fucking professional dancer. I have taught classes. Like I am a dancer.
Yeah. To me, as soon as when somebody gives you $1, you are a professional dancer.
Yeah.
I bet it's been more than that. I only learned that you're a pole dancer today when I walked into your space and I'm looking yonder straight at a stripper pole. And then I see the shoes.
Yeah.
But then when we hugged, I think it was we hugged and then I saw the pole. Your body is so strong.
Is it? Oh my gosh. Wow. Thank you.
So I felt, to me, for somebody to want to do pole, you have to have a certain amount of grit. That is my opinion.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't tickle. There's friction, there's strength, and there's risk taking.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And so I went to one class and I'm like, oh hell no. Same with parkour.
Oh my God.
Do you know
parkour.
One time.
You mean what my cat does around the house?
Right. One time I went to a class that was going to show you how to, and I would like jumped over one thing, sort of bruised my knuckles a little bit. I'm like, bye.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, thank you.
Kind of how I am in tricks classes. I'm like, this hurts.
Everything.
Fine. I'll do it again.
But still, you must have a great amount of stick-to-itiveness and calluses and different unique parts of your body.
I'm a little out of practice right now, but I still have my calluses on my fingers. So I have to get back into training, and cross training is really important. And there's it's a very dedicated practice.
You referred to yourself as an athlete, and I think that's appropriate.
Yeah, definitely. I am on the least athletic side of the pole dancers because I like the choreography. Like, again, I'm rooted in dance versus gymnastics. So I'm less attracted to the tricks. So I don't do it as much, A, because it's hard and it sucks, but because I'm not motivated that much to do them. But then when I can, I'm like, this is so fucking cool.
Don't we all want to see this woman dance?
Champagne Womb. That's my Instagram account for all my dance. So you can just go wander and.
Will I see some video?
Yeah.
I have something to do later.
You do.
Oh, thank you.
Yay.
It's such a cool way to meet somebody. Like, be like, oh, we know each other professionally. We are network, and then it's like, bam! Like, look at this human being work a pole.
Yeah.
How cool. That's really cool.
You know, that's the really cool thing about intimacy coordinators as well, is that we all came to this from a lot of different angles.
Yeah.
And not everyone has production experience before they start doing this job. Not everyone has sex education experience before they start doing this job. There are a lot of, especially because the position is still in its maybe not infancy, toddlerhood,
well
maybe.
Put. Yes.
You know?
Like, they're walking, they're wobbling.
Yeah, it's wobbling. Like I mean, you and I spoke about inconsistencies between coordinators that have been trained under different schools of thought.
That's right.
Yeah, which, you know, I'm always going to defer back to my production experience and like what I would make the role do. And I'm like, well, that's what I do, because that's what, like, I go beyond what the training is, because I'm like, but this is what the role is in the scope of a production. So it's, you know, it's really interesting. But listen, the good ones are going to work. And the ones that best support a production and the creative and the actors and are able to do that in the most cohesive way, we're going to see that is going to be the norm. And that's what's going to actually structurize and normalize it beyond what the SAG guidelines require.
It's like the next 20 years are going to be about the norms.
Yeah.
So I saw a movie this week.
What did you see?
I first heard about it through our intimacy coordinator community.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody, I believe, saw it through a special screening, probably because of union membership. And they said this one's special. So I've been keeping my eye out for it. It's Poor Things.
I've been wanting to see that too, because I read about.
I wish I called you.
Oh my God.
I wish I called you.
Yeah.
I saw it solo. I don't know that I've ever said this in my life about a film. Masterpiece. Masterpiece.
Wow.
I really believe that. And as I walked out, in my gut, I felt this sick feeling of jealousy.
Oh.
I would have loved. There's so much intimacy. There's so much talent.
Yeah.
And I would have loved to have been part of a team like that. So because we are recording this on the cusp of the new year, my dream for myself and for you too, if you want it, is to work on productions where we feel like we were part of something really special.
Fuck yeah.
Creative.
Yeah.
And also not just one day.
Yeah.
Something over the course of time where we get to really be part of the creative team and that we can look and say, we made something.
Yeah.
This is a special film.
So mote it be.
So mote it be. That's goddess time.
It is.
Now, it's because it has sexuality in it, and I think you may be aware that there's some sexual themes. I purchased the ticket with my business checking account, i.e. tax-deductible research.
Yeah.
Research because now I'm learning about a particular director. I'm learning about, and because I watched a hell of a lot of intimacy.
Yeah.
I'm curious if you do the same when you see media and stuff.
So they don't really let us do that in the IRS world anymore.
Really?
Yeah. You know, I'll still do it, but they won't take all of that anymore. The laws have changed over the last couple of years. So.
I wish I didn't know that, because I'm such a straight shooter with my taxes.
Yeah. It's submitted anyway, whatever. But like the things have changed. That's why a lot of us have LLCs now when we didn't necessarily have to. I have one too. I learned on my last jobs that I actually have to get some letter now in order to do the loan out. It's like a whole fucking thing.
Wait, loan out. Okay. I'm not that LLC. I'm a sole proprietor.
Okay.
So you're a corporation. I know we might be going into the weeds more than your listeners want to hear.
I know, but that also has to do with any coaching that I might do, because there has to be
Separation?
Yeah, there has to be a level of protection there. So it's like anyone who's a therapist or a coach or does any sort of work like that would be aware that like they really do need to have an LLC because you don't want that to be under your sole proprietorship. So it's different modalities and different legalities and licenses and credentials and all sorts of things mean different things and what you can and can't have. And it's a whole thing. It's a whole thing that most of you probably don't care about.
Yeah,
but if you do, shoot me an email.
Yeah, you are
happy to share.
You're a knowledgeable human. Really impressive.
Oh, thanks.
You know a lot of things.
I've lived a lot of life in my 40 years. I've probably lived 80 in my 40 years. So,
Do you feel like an old soul?
Yeah. I always have.
I feel like there's a mixed blessing in that the old soul has a lot of wisdom. But frankly, whenever I see, like in a child's eyes, an old soul, I also see a lot of sadness.
Yeah, because we're different. We can't be chill.
What does that mean to you?
I think old souls just don't fit in as well.
That's right.
We can't like going to a bar and like social, like I think a lot of us
no small talk
for this old soul. I've always related better to like older people and like it's just it's an interesting thing to be an old soul in a young body, but now I'm getting older, so it's kind of making more sense maybe.
Are more people your age feeling like, oh, okay, I get them because we're entering into the middle years?
Maybe not really. I think millennials, I think a lot of us have been stunted because of the trauma every couple of years that we have. That's like this big global thing that's never happened before or hasn't happened in, a whole generation, this generation and the generation under us. I mean, obviously over us as well.
So much trauma.
Ruby, here she is. Yeah, it's like one thing after another. So, I don't know.
For a while, it was hard for me to understand why people entering into their 20s haven't learned how to drive yet.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it has to do with this very thing that the world isn't a really like friendly.
Oh, she's fine.
Kitty cat alert. I feel like, I'm understanding now that the world is not a safe seeming place. So folks aren't like, I can't wait to be independent out there in the world. They're like, how about not?
Yeah. Well, and there's also trends in sexuality with younger people in not engaging in in-person sex and sexuality and having it more in the digital space. And I don't mean digital space with your fingers. I mean digital space with a phone. So things like phone sex and sexting and photos and stuff like that, as opposed to real in-person skin to skin connection. So I think it's going to be even worse with the generation that grew up with COVID, who really had
during their
years.
Formative sexual years, they had to express themselves and then maybe have learned to rely now on these different not in-person modalities of sexual expression. So check this out. One time I was considering applying for a South by Southwest panel or talk or something. And so my colleague, we were discussing it, said, check out what's been done in sex ed in the past couple years in sex ed spaces. And there was this panel where there was somebody, probably in the tech sector, but it was a sex panel, who said at a certain point, there's going to be something that they called the singularity, where people will not be having physical sex with each other anymore. Whoa. And I'm like, bullshit. But then I had to pause in the past couple years since I read that. I'm like, I really need to think about this because if augmented reality and virtual reality delivers higher octane hormone punches, it will be hard to go back to the slippery and messy and emotionally challenging work of being skin to skin. I am looking at you and you're nodding like you're not shocked.
I'm not shocked.
Wow.
I'm not shocked. But what I'm also thinking of is two things. What was going through my head was that first and foremost, for people who are disabled, that is going to be a fucking game changer. Because quite often they
left out of the conversation.
They're left out of the conversation completely, and they're left to rely on sex workers alone if they want non-medical intimate touch. So
And we met through a disability
oh, we
educator.
did.
Yeah, that's
we
how
did.
we met.
Oh my God, that's right.
Learning about
Forgot.
disability and
Yeah,
sexuality, and taught by two folks who identify as disabled
Yeah.
in different ways.
Yeah,
Mhm.
definitely. And Sawyer was in my IPA class.
Really?
So he's great. I love that dude. He's great. I was such a proud moment watching him on the screen,
Really?
and just like the way that they conducted everything in their brains, and like, great job, Sawyer.
Can I pause for a moment? Because Sawyer's identifies as having autism,
Mhm.
right? What I love most about classes like that is when people share true stories. Almost everything about what's on the slides is stuff that I might already know.
Mhm.
But once they slip in a little moment of truth, that's what sticks with me. And Sawyer gave me one of those moments. And
Yeah.
what Sawyer said is that the reason you might not know that I have autism is that I am masking and that
Mhm.
it takes energy. And Sawyer said, because what I would be doing, and mentioned some movements with the hands. And I'm like, that just, you can knock me over with a stick. Like, wow, you are holding off on making movements your body wants to make for
our benefit, so we feel
our
comfortable.
benefit.
Yeah.
But it was really eye-opening for me,
Mhm.
the amount of work that Sawyer was putting in to pass,
Yeah.
if that's the right word.
And Sawyer is one of millions who do this every single day.
Mm.
You know, I mean, and it's just things that we're not thinking about, let alone talking about.
Can anybody hear the dog lapping up water? It's one of my favorite sounds.
Some ASMR. Was that good, Rose?
Let's have just a little more. Oh, we're done. Okay.
This is what it is to have an at-home studio. The creatures be creeping.
It's fun.
The creatures be creeping. So, okay, so disability is the one thing that I think about. And the other thing that I think about is people who engage in kink and BDSM.
Mm-hmm.
The very root of that is a lot of it, not all of it, but a lot of it is sensation play.
Mm-hmm.
So you can get a lot of the power play
Mhm.
through a digital forum and through non-contact, but a lot of kinks have to do, and BDSM practices in general, have to do with actual tactile
Mhm.
experiences.
Mhm.
So
What do you think tech is going to do to that?
there are ways to have tactile experiences. There are already toys that can do that. There are plenty of vibrators out there.
Remote controls.
You can control it from your phone. You can have somebody controlling it from far away. So there are things like that that do already exist. I have a couple of those things, and they don't always work that great, to be honest with you. But they exist. But when it comes to the in-person power exchange and interaction and use of different tools, I don't know that we are ever going to get to a point until we have full robots that can do that. Which is like, yeah, sure, the millionaires are going to have those things. But at that point, they're still going to probably hire a highly skilled dominatrix to do that, or dominant to do that, versus a robot. Some will have a robot because they want that, but I don't know that physical touch is ever going to completely come off the table. I think it'll be very interesting.
Two people touching each other.
Yeah. Yeah. I think certainly for people in our generation and slightly younger,
we're into I'm Gen X.
You are, yeah, but our generations, you're the same age as my sister, so like, yeah, so I'm very familiar with your whole world. Again, old soul, like I grew up with her and running around with her, so you know, I think the people just below me, not her kids. I think her kids are the generation. I don't even know what letter they're up to, Z maybe. I think her generation they are really where we're seeing the no contact and no touch, but like they're still out there fucking, they're sucking, they're fucking, they're doing the things. But I think with the younger generations, especially that were impacted by COVID, when we're super duper old, we'll probably start to really see the ramifications of that when they're in their 20s and 30s and 40s. And it's going to be really interesting because the technology will be so far ahead of where it is now. And those people will now be adults.
I'm so curious what's going to happen. And I do want to try all the things.
I want to try all the things too.
Try all the things.
Come here, robot. Come on over.
When you said robot, I'm like, that's the first time it sounded sexy.
Yeah. We can make robots sexy. I mean, listen, there are sex dolls, and that's a whole other ethical conversation and a very complex conversation that I do love because it really makes us think about sexuality and connection and needs and harm reduction and a whole bunch of things.
I think you and I might be thinking of some same stuff. It's so taboo and hard to talk about, but harm reduction using sex dolls is something that I'm curious about. And it's like, I'm sure somebody's doing the research. I hope so.
Yeah.
But yes, the idea that people, I mean, there are TV shows and reality shows that have focused on people who've been willing to be known as those who have a sex doll. And they even made a show that I got to audition for as an IC.
Oh, cool.
Didn't get to work on it, but it came out. I'm trying to remember what it was called. But Ray Romano played a character whose wife was a doll.
Oh, yeah. There are a lot of people.
It was so well written.
There are far more people in a dynamic like that than we realize. Because again, it's shamed, it's shunned, it's private, it's people are embarrassed for them, but do they really need to be? Because if this is helping this person connect outside and be with people outside, and it's helping fulfill needs, and it's not a compulsion, and it's not harming other people,
then leave it alone.
What is the problem?
Yeah, leave it alone.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about so many things. As long as it's not harming you or the other, leave people alone.
Yeah, because again, if we're looking at people with different social anxieties, different types of neurodivergence, different types of physical abilities,
and trauma,
and different traumas, having a relationship with an inanimate object,
which is a real thing,
which is a real thing,
completely opened to an inanimate object, as people know if they've ever had a teddy bear or a blankie.
Exactly,
it still exists. If we nurture that, we can still exist to love a thing.
Yeah, and so if we're calling sex dolls and relationships with sex dolls wrong, then is your child's relationship to their blanket wrong? Is your child's relationship to their teddy bear wrong? Is your relationship to your dog wrong?
It's just as soon as the genitals become involved, we have such a knee-jerk, the culture has such a knee-jerk reaction and a fear.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And it's rooted in shame, and it's rooted in purity culture, and it's rooted in misinformation and judgment. But judgment is fear, right? Judgment is fear and shame, and
oh my gosh,
all the layers.
Yeah. I mean, as you know, I run a practice called Cuddle Sanctuary.
Yes. Tell us about it.
Encouraging people to be their most authentic selves in an environment where hugs are welcome, never required, but certainly welcome. And where people can begin to distinguish the different kinds of love and care as adults, because so many people have conflated the only kind of touch they can receive with another adult is sexual touch. And that creates a great amount of loneliness for people. Yeah. And so bringing back kind, tender, affectionate touch to the world is such a gift. And some people, because they come from our culture, which is bizarre around sex, they say that they cannot believe it exists. Yeah. That we can have events that are platonic without a wink, without somebody there who's a predator. Yeah. Who's out to get something from it when there's so much to get in its current format. But yeah, it saddens me, and it tells me, like, when people start going along that line, I'm like, oh, you've been trained so well to do this toxic thing. And generally it's toxic masculinity. I love masculinity, just a toxic one hurts us all. Hear, hear. But that's when I'm just like, well, but luckily I haven't had to deal with that for quite some time. Yeah. Now just people are like, oh, I get it.
But it's true. I mean, it is really hard for a lot of people to understand that touch can exist without sexuality, and that a deep love can exist without expectation. Love can exist without sexuality attached to it. Sexuality can exist without love. Like, all these things are not mutually exclusive. Like, everything is we can have all of these different thoughts and feelings and experiences, and not everything leads to fucking.
Yeah, we contain multitudes.
Oh, we really do.
We're so complex. I was taking a walk recently, and I was just thinking about it with a smile. For a while, I would think that if I focused on myself too much, then I was being selfish. right? But the truth is, if I'm really self-aware, I can love better.
Yeah.
And I can also have an open heart to others and be a better friend and all the other things. But now that I'm really getting to the heart of what it is to be fully human, and I feel like I'm getting that more and more now, I'm like, it's interesting.
Yeah.
Just how I go about life and what strikes me and what confuses me and what triggers me and everything. It's so interesting. And so I'm awake.
Yeah.
It feels.
Humans are fucking fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
We are so fascinating. And the way that we justify things is fascinating sometimes. And just the way that we move through things and just breaking. I mean, I love psychology. I mean, I think that's what attracted me to health coaching and sexuality and all of these things, because it's intrinsically tied to our psychology. All of it comes back to what our belief systems are and what we've been taught and what our experiences are and how we've turned those experiences into thoughts and feelings and emotions and behaviors. And we are fascinating creatures. The fact that we can think about these things and, it's wild. I'm going off track.
That's okay. It made me think of how, by being brought up in a sex negative culture and socialized as female, which has its own oppression, how could I figure out how to find arousal in this environment?
Yeah.
And I think that may be partially where kink came in for me, because I identify as kinky, is that if you tell me that I have to do nothing and that pleases you, for example, or that all I have to do is follow instructions and that's pleasing to you, but meanwhile the instructions include feel good feelings or feel good sensations, that would be the way that psychologically I could thread the needle and give myself permission to have pleasure. So I think a lot, because I wrote a whole show about it, I think a lot about what is the source of kinkiness? Where did it start? For most people, it starts so young. And so I don't think there's one answer, but it goes back to that. People are absolutely fascinating.
Yeah. And kinkiness is curiosity, isn't it?
That's so interesting. People define it so differently. Some people would just say kinky is anything different than the norm.
Yeah. But
So
what the fuck is the norm?
Right. In some cultures, though, for example, like, did you know that there are places where indigenous folk on the continent of Africa, I have to be really vague because I can't remember which country or which group, would find suckling of the breast to be, I mean, maybe we'd call it kinky because it's so different, but they actually find it like a repulsive act. Why would somebody act like a child? Whereas, in my world, that's hot.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
But over there, it's like, that is embarrassing.
Yeah.
That's an embarrassing thing for an American man to want. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah,
So that's culture.
That is culture. I mean, that goes back to the gender conversation too, right? Because everything gender-wise is, it's normal for men to wear a skirt in one country, but not another. So doesn't that just tell you it's all fucking bullshit? So
yeah, it's all
of it is bullshit. All of it is bullshit. I think that the reason that I say kinkiness is curiosity is because you kind of have to be curious to be kinky, because you're like, what does that feel like? What is this like? You have to be curious about the other person. You have to be curious about yourself. You have to be curious about the sensation. You have to be curious while it's happening. Like, there is a certain level of curiosity, I think, that's required in order to be kinky.
For me, I could only speak for me. I just simply found myself being aroused by things that were confusing.
Yeah.
And that most people don't identify as being aroused by. And so it wasn't because I was curious. It was just like, oops, it looks like something's happening here kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think that what's key is that open-mindedness.
Yes.
Otherwise, shame.
Yeah, exactly.
Otherwise, embarrassment. Otherwise, tuck it away. Don't even admit it to yourself. That's why I created a class. I created around your bucket list.
Yeah.
What kind of things do you like? And are you allowed to like? And creating an environment where it's okay to ask that question. And I like talking to you about these things.
Yeah.
I'm so glad we waited to dive into a lot of this until now. Well, you could see.
Yay.
And hear.
Yeah, exactly. So let's back up into your formative education, because I'm sure it did not include kink or cuddling. What was it like in Hollywood, Florida?
I'm trying to remember, because I've heard people talk so much about their crap upbringing, and I'll pretty much say STI fear, pregnancy fear. That's pretty much it. Pregnancy fear, STI fear. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. So where was I lacking? Pleasure. I didn't have any information about pleasure, relationships, intimacy, boundaries. Nothing.
Yep. Especially not boundaries.
No.
Especially
that
not
is
boundaries.
a crime.
Yeah.
That is setting up, especially those of us who have been socialized as women. So setting up girls for injury. One time when I was 16 to 18, maybe it might have been 18, I remember saying to my sister, because I was very confused, I said, I feel like an accident waiting to happen. And she didn't respond.
Wow.
But I knew it. I had the wisdom to know something is terribly wrong here. And those things transpired because the culture sets us up to be accidents waiting to happen.
Wow. Wow. And the culture also sets us up to ignore our red flags.
That's it. That's what I mean. I was
Ignore.
trained to go, oh, it's okay. I would walk myself into situations that were dangerous because I would talk myself out of them because I was trained to ignore what was happening and just smooth things over.
Yeah, 100%. I had this conversation with a sound mixer on one of the jobs that I was on. I forget what we were talking about exactly, but we were talking about intimacy coordinating. He had a lot of questions. A lot of people, as you know, they have a lot of questions.
I love when people ask.
Me too. I'm like, let's talk, let's jam. And so I was trying to explain that exact thing to him and this is not explicitly to people who grew up as women or as girls. This is for all children are taught to ignore those red flags within their body, because think of how many times a guardian or a parent or whoever is like, just go give them a hug. Just go do that because I said so. You don't have a choice. How many times as children are we all collectively taught we don't have a voice, we don't have a choice?
About our bodies. It's a betrayal.
Yes.
It's a betrayal that starts young.
Yeah. And then you have actors that are taught yes and that if you say no, you're going to get fired. And this is also, I tell this to crew members all the time as well. When I AD, I get a whole safety meeting about hierarchy. And I'm like, I do not care. There is no hierarchy in safety. You see something, you say something. This is the MTA, motherfuckers. I don't care who it is. You come to me, you come to the UPM, you come to the producer, you come to your department head, you come to somebody who's safe. I don't care who it is or who's doing what. If you see something that makes you feel unsafe in any way, there is absolutely no hierarchy on this set because there's not. It goes back to safety and pleasure, safety and pleasure, safety and creation. We can't create, we can't be expansive unless we feel safe.
This is something, I'm so glad you just said that because I wanted to circle back to it and now we can. I am baffled by how many creative environments are hostile. Like the one I was mentioning earlier, created great art.
Yeah.
That pisses me off. Then people start to conflate toxicity and hostile work environments as a requirement for art. Bullshit.
Oh, yeah.
But it saddens me and it makes me just feel agitated that some beautiful art does get made. And then if the beautiful art gets made and then it makes money, then that same toxic leader gets to make more art and create shit environments for people at work. I don't like that. I wish that there would be a toxic like fart smell that would just follow along with people's work.
Yeah.
And that it would just taint the work. But some people have been, this is what I think happens. I'm going to make a postulate. I'm going to hypothesize that because many people have been brought up in toxic home environments and have survived that these toxic work environments are familiar and these folks have learned how to be functional. And therefore, a bunch of people across a bunch of departments are being functional within hostility when they could be transcendent with their art if it was only safe.
Well, we're fawning, right? It's all fawning. It's all a bunch of fawning. I will say, having worked at a studio for 3 years, however long it was, for an entire pandemic, you can very easily find what studio that is. I'm not going to say it on the air here. But I will say that because of where I was and the level that I was at, I did have privy to things that were happening in terms of employee relations and investigations and stuff like that.
Sure.
Also, my team specifically had to deal with a lot of harassment and would also witness things like that.
So sorry.
It was fucking terrible.
That. Yeah. People get very triggered around being told what to do.
Yeah.
And they were fearful anyway. And then some people turn their fear into anger. And,
oh, yeah. And when it came to COVID, you know, we got the brunt of everything. Everyone's emotions fell on my team and myself. So I will say, whether it had to do with COVID or other bad behaviors or whatever, I am very proud of the studio and the work that they did do to hold people accountable. I have seen people be let go at the highest levels because they were just too inappropriate for too long. And they're like, no, we're not, this is not okay. We're not going to do this. We're not going to allow this behavior anymore. So it does still take a long time for that to happen. And there's a big process, and the bigger the name, the bigger the thing, whatever. But this is a much different environment than that we're working in now today than what we were even working in 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So the change moves really slow, very, very, very slow. And a big part of having intimacy coordinators on site is so that we are the eyes and ears for things like sexual harassment and just harassment in general, because we're trained for it. And not that we're like the police looking for it. Like, we're not looking for anything.
We know how to help it. We know how to help.
Exactly. We know how to help. We know how to recognize it. And at least for my studio, there is a thirst to hold people accountable. They don't want to create these unsafe environments. We got so much shit because we were the highest level of safety for the most part when it came to COVID. Hey, girls. Okay, now we're back. Post dog, whatever. So yeah, the point that I was trying to make is that change is really hard. It is hard to remove people in positions of power, but there is a dynamic happening where things are shifting. Thanks to Me Too, intimacy coordinators do have a big role in that. We're not there to be police. We're not like looking to catch anybody or anything like that. But as we mentioned, like, we're trained to see it in a way that other people are not.
I wanted to share with you, it's good news, and something else I wanted to check in with you about. So I was on a set where there was some hostility from the actor towards me.
Yeah.
And,
which happens a lot, by the way.
And the actor happened to be a tall, broad, masculine being. And I made a decision typically I would speak to the performer and just say, hey, is there something that I've done? Is there something that I've done since I met you yesterday? Because I'm noticing a few things. To basically call out what I'm observing rather than cow down to it, you know?
Yeah.
And I chose not to do that because that person was about to perform, and it might have blown up at me.
Oh, yeah.
So I went to production and I just said I could use some advice. This is what I'm observing. And I would typically just have a conversation with the performer, but I have a feeling it's important that I go to you first. And just to what you said, they thanked me. Happily, they thanked me. They wanted the information. They wound up speaking to somebody about it, and I don't think it ever trickled down to a conversation with a performer. But it was known, it was flagged, it was observed, and that's a tiny little something.
And right? I will tell you from a ton of experience, agents will hop on a phone faster than you can even say, can you?
To do what?
Call their people and be like, you need to get in line. I've seen it hundreds of times.
In other words, to say, we've heard something is going on
with
what your behavior and cut it?
Yeah. Yeah. Agents do not mess around with their people. Obviously different levels of celebrity can be different, and those relationships can look different. But I've had it happen with top celebrities too, where their agents get on the phone. They're like, are you kidding me, dude? What are you doing? And I say dude as just like human, not man specifically, because believe me, it happens with women as well. But, again, working with actors it's a very interesting thing because, and really anybody in production. Production is a very interesting, complex business to work in.
It is.
And that's why, like, you really need to understand the dynamics and the politics and the behaviors of a production in order to be an intimacy coordinator and do well at that and not do damage.
I have a question for you, or
Ooh,
at least
yeah.
I wanted to share with you this combination of words. I never had this word combination for, but now I'm like, oh, this is in my toolkit from now on.
Yeah, what?
So the performer was doing some behaviors, avoiding eye contact, staring at his phone in a way that made me know he wasn't looking at anything on his phone. He was using his phone as a way to avoid interacting with me. But these are very subtle things that if you said, what happened between you conversationally?
Yeah.
There would be nothing I could say.
Yeah.
But the behavior was clear as a bell to me. And I now have a word for it. I call it shunning behavior. Shunning.
Yeah.
That's what it is. And it's something a person can do in a full room of people. You can shun somebody.
Oh, yeah.
And they can feel it. And
it's intentional.
It's absolutely intentional.
If that's what was going on with that person in that situation and blah, blah, blah. Because obviously there's a lot of reasons why people can be having those behaviors, and it doesn't have to do with shunning always, but in that specific case.
It was context specific.
Yeah.
And so now I have the words for it. So it's just, it used to be this thing that I didn't have words for, and it felt very disempowering, or almost like I had to beg people to believe me.
Yeah.
But now I have a word for it. And I'm like, this is the behavior. It looks like this. This is the word for it.
Yeah. It's avoidance. Yeah. Purposeful avoidance.
It's hostile.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. But just circling back to the dynamics of actors and like the variety, because you have the actors who are new and not as experienced, and that's the group of people who are used to saying yes and don't necessarily have, or sometimes some people are very, very good at this, but not everyone feels that they have a voice, and they want to appease and stuff like that. And then you have the other end of the spectrum, and these are the actors who are very experienced. They've been doing it for decades, well before intimacy coordinators were everything.
And they're like, where have you been?
Yeah.
I don't need you.
And just generally speaking, they're not used to hearing no. So you have, and oftentimes these people are in the same scenes together. So it's a lot of navigation to do, an interpersonal
layers of psychology.
Yeah. Layers of psychology, layers of understanding, layers of knowledge of the industry and how things work and what the norm is, and what is the dynamic that people are used to, and what is the dynamic of this production, because every single production is its own special little creature.
Yeah, you get a gig. So you get a gig, and then every single piece of data point, like every text, every word said, the new person, the new crew member has to be a sponge to get into the culture of that production quick.
I fucking love it.
You do. It's so great that you love it.
I love production. It's my first love. It's the love of my life.
Really?
Yeah, I would definitely say working in production is the love of my life.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
You are here in LA.
Yeah.
Working only just as recently as I think yesterday. Last week. Last week. Doing your love.
Yeah. Yeah. It was nice to be back on set after so long. So it feels good.
It after with a gap of time that COVID gave us, a gap of time that the union strike gave us.
Well, my gap was only the strike, because COVID, I was busier than I've ever been.
But having a gap of time without working, it makes one feel like, are my skills still shiny?
Yeah.
And then you work and you're like, they're shiny and new.
And it feels so good.
Yeah. Aww.
Yeah. It's really, it was great. It was great. So what was the thing that led you into intimacy coordinating?
A bunch of people started sending me the article in Rolling Stone that came out in 2018.
Yeah.
The last quarter of 2018, people kept sending me those articles because they knew I had an acting background. They knew that I taught about consent with Cuddle Sanctuary. They knew I did some sex ed at universities and did a show about sexuality. And it just all seemed to be like, isn't this the obvious thing we should be doing? And at first I was like, I don't see it. And then in December of 2018, I was like, it was just like exploded in my mind. I just was like, I must do.
I must do.
I reached out to Amanda, who had a website, Intimacy Coordination, or intimacycoordinator.com. And I thought she was being aspirational. I thought that our colleague was, and teacher, was simply
An agent.
I thought that she was just being aspirational. Like she just popped up a website. She's like, nope, I'm working on HBO's Euphoria. I'm like, what?
Mhm.
And I got to be on that set on this, with her. That was cool.
Yeah.
And by 2019, I got my first like big gig. And it was not many other people were trained up.
Yeah. That was early days.
I started getting ridiculously huge gigs with very little experience doing intimacy. And boy, they were harsh. They were super harsh. And then COVID. But it was an interest. You know what? I would say this. I came up in acting, pursuing acting for over 15 years, and doggedly. And I always saw productions as being like the cool kids I couldn't play with.
Oh.
And now I get to be on set and being a cool kid, doing the work and being on set. I do enjoy being on set so much.
Yeah.
There was something really healing the summer before last when I worked on a video game for a couple months, like 3 months.
Oh.
Is
it the one that everybody's talking about?
It's BAFTA award winning, and it's called Immortality.
Oh, okay.
It had
It wasn't the one with like animals or something like that. That was like Boulder or something.
Tons of people.
Okay. Yeah.
Tons of intimacy.
Oh my gosh.
It was like working on 3 films concurrently.
Yeah.
Because they had 3 different narrative storylines and in 3 different genres.
Wow.
And so much intimacy. But what was special about it is that I worked a lot. And so I got that sense of being part of a troupe.
Yeah.
And I was on set all the time. And the actor I was supporting the most would just say, I always give a breath of relief when I see you're on set. And I'm like,
Isn't that so nice?
I'm alone.
Yeah.
Yes. And so it's something in me just clicked where I'm like, okay, I finally get to be inside of this. Because it's like a traveling circus.
It is. Yeah.
It's
I
so
always call us
cool.
the modern day circus.
Yes.
Mhm.
I mean, to me, the idea of being able to go one day in one location and another day another, and all the circus performers are the same people doing the same function, and that somebody put together a document that made it possible for something as complex as a wedding could occur on one day and then another wedding tomorrow.
It's usually me.
What?
I've done those documents. I'm the person
call sheet.
that does that shit.
The call sheet. So
Yeah.
project management, the level of project
Mhm.
management is like a military installation.
Yeah.
And it is.
It's actually better than the military because I've done jobs with the military,
you
and I'll tell
know?
you we're better.
But the idea that but you've done you've actually created those documents. I know how to navigate the document.
Yeah.
And to get where I'm supposed to be. It's cool.
Yeah.
There's a lot to know. And if you don't know it, it's not going to be good.
I love teaching people those documents. I got to tell you, I love
So many
breaking
columns,
it down.
so many
and
acronyms.
being like, this is what this means, and this is what that means, and this is how you behave on set, and this is how you don't behave on set, and this is
Yeah.
what works, and this is what doesn't work. And yeah.
Like I love when they'll, after a scene is done, I think they'll say wild lines,
Mhm.
right? And everyone is just quiet.
Yeah, wild sound.
Yeah,
Mhm.
wild sound. You take a breath, quiet, and then there's a recording of ambient sound.
I do love that.
Everybody knows what's happening. Nobody farts.
Mhm.
Nobody sneezes. Have you ever had a cough where you're like,
Oh, it's
and
the
the eyes are
worst.
tearing and you're like, I cannot cough. I will not cough.
As a first AD,
Mhm.
I'm always right there. So I have had many times where I'm just like crying
Yeah, because you
can't
cannot
a
make the sound.
I can't make a sound during a take.
Mhm.
And even if I try to stifle it, I'm
Mhm.
so close to camera at all times, or Video Village is always going to be close to camera.
Yeah.
I'm so close at all times. I can't go anywhere. Like
You're it.
I'm it. So I have streamed down my face
Because of the
because I'm like,
pain.
don't do it. Don't do
Right.
it.
So that's like a part of the culture that's just so specific and unique. And
Yeah.
another is a certain hardiness.
Mm.
Like sometimes you're in a ridiculously cold place. Sometimes you're in a ridiculously hot place. You need to have the right gear for that.
Mhm.
You need to be prepared, no joke, to be hydrated, to be safe. You're in an environment where there are cables, where there's electrical danger.
Yeah.
It's a dangerous environment.
It's a dangerous environment. It's true. That's why
I love wearing my
safety is
work
so
boots.
important.
I love wearing work boots and
Mhm.
and going, wearing a thick belt in my I've got my stuff on me. Oops.
Yeah.
I love the hardiness
Yeah.
of being on set.
Yeah.
I think you do too.
I do. I love it. It's the love of my life. Well, otherwise, why would I spend 18, 19 hours a day some
Let me
days?
tell you, the
you know?
lifestyle of it will take it out of you.
First ADs have the shortest lifespan. True story.
You had mentioned that, and I am
Yeah.
not surprised, which is why it's gorgeous to be an IC because we have sweet hours comparatively.
Yeah, it's way
livable.
way different. Yeah, it's livable. It's way different. Yeah, I mean, I love IC work. I absolutely do, and it's also, it is a really big responsibility too. So it's like it's short hours, but there's
focus.
It's so focused and it's so specific. And the reality is that you are dealing with people's bodies that they have to go home with. So it is a little bit like, oh my God, I'm only here for 4 hours and I'm getting my day rate and blah, 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 blah.
I feel no guilt.
I mean, I also am used to working literally 20 hours and never getting $1 of overtime because production doesn't get paid overtime. So, it's a lot of, again, the unlearning, right? But there's so much value and there's so much work that has led up to those hours of us being on set. Yeah. And we are, again, prepared and trained for things that nobody else on that set is prepared or trained for.
Yep.
So, and it is a big responsibility when you're actually taking care of somebody else's boundaries and their physical, literal bodies that they go home with.
Now, there's also the embarrassing part of the job. I'll just speak for myself, where I've done all of the hard work, which is the conversations, the complex and nuanced discussions. All of that has happened before I come on set. I arrive on set. Many people don't know me. It might be my first and only day. I show up. I'm standing in a very privileged position near the director, speaking with the script supervisor. It's a privileged position, and I'm respected. There I am. And I do nothing. What I mean by I do nothing is maybe I give somebody a mint, but my presence is there. But to the people who don't know me, I just want to say I've worked so much already and I bring a wealth of experience and I can handle things if shit goes down, hits the fan. But to you, it looks like I am just standing here.
Yeah, I always tell people, listen, I'm here to be a ninja. The best job that I can do is the job that you don't know I'm here. You will see that I'm here and I'm right next to everyone. This is how I AD as well.
That's brilliant. The ninja.
I'm a little ninja. Like when I AD, I always scare my directors and producers because not
sneak
producers.
Up to them.
Well, because like the director and DP, y'all will get into conversations and I'm like, what the fuck are these two talking about? Like y'all are trying to change shit on me and I got to run your day. Like, so you'll be like, I'll just be standing there. Like I'm not interrupting. I'm not trying to push in the way. Like I'm just there. And they'll be, oh shit, you're right there. I'm like, yep, I'm always going to be right here.
Yeah.
Especially with the director.
That is another thing that it's weird behavior for anywhere else, but you have to have your ears on what those two are talking about. So you have to be the person who's just there.
And I know, there's also the art of knowing when you should be listening and when you need to tune out. So, there's so much, so much you learn over 20 fucking years of doing this job. So
I would love to be. Now, can you remind me if you still do AD work?
I do. Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I would love to be on set.
Yeah. Well, I do it for commercials. So.
Oh, okay. But still, ICs are sometimes brought in.
Sometimes,
I have been asked to give a quote.
Yeah.
Once or twice. I was part of somebody's, what is it called? Bid.
Yeah.
I was part of the bid.
Yeah,
I did not get it, but I was really excited.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm also definitely trying to make some shifts into the commercial world as well.
So in other words, for ICs, so ICs understand. You know what I love about your doing commercials is I'm imagining that your quality of life is better because you're doing those 20-hour days if you need to, but not forever.
Yeah.
It's a short film.
Yeah, I don't like to AD features or shows anymore. I've done a couple of them and I'm like, I don't, especially when production wants us to go into a 6-day and I'm like, I don't even want to plan a 6-day because I just don't believe in them. You're going to lose money in the end.
Mistakes, safety problems.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Lost stuff, injuries, overtime on the other days. Like it doesn't, like I get the math, but also it's like, it's shit math. It's production math. It's not good math. But we got to wrap this up.
Yeah, I was thinking, have we talked enough sex ed?
We've talked.
I've enjoyed it.
This show is about sex ed, but also about whatever we want to talk about.
Okay.
And y'all are into it, so thank you. What is something that you would like to leave the people with? Because I'm not going to give you a pop quiz because you are a pro in and of yourself. So what's something that you just want to leave people with? Maybe you wish more people knew or understood, or just a little mantra, whatever you want.
Yeah. So I think I want to talk about hugs. Not everybody is hug friendly. Some people wish they could hug everyone, and that is a beautiful way to be, but not everybody is that. And it's not their fault that not everybody wants all the hugs. Some people are very selective with hugs, and that means it depends on the context and if they feel safe and comfortable. That's more my style. Some people are averse to it for a variety of reasons. They need space. So I would offer as a public service announcement this idea of let's not assume and instead make a practice of asking. And simply to say, without leaning into somebody, may I give you a hug? Or can we share a hug? Or would you like a hug? And just see what the person says. Notice their body language. If they're like, sure, then you know they don't want one because they're not leaning in and their eyes sort of darted to one side. And then you could go, how about a fist bump instead?
Yeah.
Like you've seen maybe in those videos with kindergartners where the teacher will say, high five, fist bump, what
do you want today?
What do you want? This is what I want as an adult is the option. And so I hope that people will consider giving the people in their lives the option. And I hope you enjoy it if somebody gives you an option. Don't take it personally and instead really decide, is it something you want? And tell them the truth.
And wait for that answer as well.
Wait for that. I call it the ask and wait method.
Yes, the ask and wait method. Where can people find you?
You can find me if you're interested in the cuddling stuff at cuddlesanctuary.com. If you're interested in the intimacy stuff, it's HollywoodIntimacyCoordinator.com. And then I also have a show called My Mother Doesn't Know. I'm Kinky. So it's MyMotherDoesn'tKnow.com. And I'm going to be performing it in 2024. And the show is called My Mother Doesn't Know I'm Kinky. So those are some of the projects and things and such. And in terms of giving presentations for universities, you can just reach out to me at JeanFranzblau.com. Anyway, if you just Jean Franzblau me, you'll find me.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. You're such a delight. We have so many more conversations in our lives to go together. And I'm so happy to know you and so excited for all that is to come. So thank you for coming on the show.
My pleasure.
I'm excited by the time this airs, I will have gone and done, but I'm so excited to come to a Cuddle Sanctuary event this weekend. Yay! So that's going to be super fun. If you like this show, please go ahead and like and subscribe. Send it to a friend, especially if you think this friend would be interested in what we were talking about. We had a great conversation. So send it through. Leave a 5-star review, do all the things. It's a brand new show. This is season 2. Exciting. That just means I'm in my 2nd year. I'm going to be keeping it really simple with the calendar year, not actual year. That's going to be in May, but fuck it. We're doing by year because I like things simple.
Okay.
So yes, if you've been here, thank you so much for joining us. Please do help spread the word, trying to normalize talking about sex and sexuality and slip in some education with some fun. So you can find us at Birds and Bees Don't Fuck without the U in all the places. And I don't know, that's it. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye.
Goodbye.